my like tinfoil hat is that someone saw what the bug was, and because I think this is the same bug that happened on DevNet almost a week ago at this point. Someone saw that bug and started looking into it and realized that mainnet had the same bug and tripped it. That's kind of my tinfoil hat. I don't know if we'll ever get hopefully we'll get some conclusion to why it happened.
Hello and welcome to our second episode of Midcurve. Today, as always, I have my beautiful co-host, Andrew. Good day, sir.
Good day to you.
We also have a very special guest. He's the founder and CEO of Jito, as well as the core contributor to the Jito network. But also, he was a collegiate swimmer, and he has a resting heart rate of 40. And all around good guy. Lucas Bruder, otherwise known as Buffalo. Welcome, my friend.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, sir. I think like everyone knows who you are. Obviously, there's no introduction needed, but maybe someone's joining us for the first time. So could you give us maybe a little bit about your background? And we'll start there.
Yeah. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Went to school in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon, studied computer engineering. Say what?
Greatest city on earth, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we had a different name for it.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice.
The Paris of the Midwest, guys. It's...
Schittsburg. Spent a few years there, as you mentioned. Swam for a few years. Swam for 2 years, and then stopped doing that and went the fraternity route instead, which was way more fun and also more manageable for academics. Since then, graduated there. Had a few jobs, mainly doing embedded systems engineering and firmware engineering. So for those that don't know, it's basically like programming resource constrained devices like microcontrollers for like anything from like an Apple Watch to like a TV remote, like those types of platforms is like the things that I was working on. Worked in did that at consultancy where I got to kind of work on like 10 different hardware devices in span of 2 years. So I got pretty good at like learning fast there. Went and did a stint in robotics, working on self-driving construction equipment. And then after that, worked on LiDAR for a little bit at Ouster. And then while I was there, was kind of thinking about doing something in the crypto and blockchain space. I'd been in it for a while. At that point, mainly as like someone investing and kind of keeping an eye on things. And from there, discovered MEV and kind of fell down that rabbit hole like most people do.
Love that. Well, that was like a very mellow and gigabrain way to describe your background. I think
I was gonna say, sorry to cut you off, Andrew, but this podcast is called Midcurve. So we gotta like back up a little bit and start talking about this in a simplified manner. But go ahead, Andrew. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. He's really dragging us out to the right curve, and we don't like that. No, talk a little bit about like what the mechanical stuff means in particular. I know you had a stint over at Tesla, things that move, whir, and light up.
Yeah.
And some of the construction equipment stuff I think is really, really fun. So if you could talk a little bit more about that. Love that.
Yeah. No, I was like, when I was trying to decide what to study, I liked working on mechanical things and like, trying to fix stuff up, like fix cars up or whatnot. So I kind of wanted to originally do mechanical engineering, and then fell down the computer rabbit hole, ended up studying computer engineering in microcontrollers. And I feel like that was a cool kind of mixture between both worlds, because I guess when people are talking about embedded systems, typically you are working at the layer between the physical world and the software world. And what I mean by that is like you have sensors. They could be like anything from like buttons to like buttons, lights, switches, to like electronic struts, or like to like actual like robotic equipment. And you're kind of getting into like that's kind of like the mechatronics area, but this embedded systems is like kind of ingesting those signals from buttons and running some state machine, figuring out what state it's in, what light turns on and off. So after my junior year at college, was an intern at Tesla for 3 months. Worked on the Model X. So that was like right before the Model X was released. The Model X is the one with the doors that, it's like I want doors open like this, not like this. And yeah, worked on the body controls team there. That was super cool. It was right before the Model X was released. So like getting to work on this car before there's a lot of people excited and hyped about it and waiting to see what it looked like and what features it had. And I was like programming some of those features. So worked a lot on the seats in particular. So like moving seats forward and backwards. Worked on like the tailgate a little bit, did a little bit of stuff on the Falcon Wing doors as well. Some code on the front doors. Front doors are kind of cool. Like when you walk up to the Model X, it will like uses has ultrasonic sensors on it, so it can like see what's around it. So when you'd like walk up to it, it would detect you and it would automatically open the front door. And there's a bunch of like
that's a
cool
very
stuff with that car.
very tech company thing that it's 3 months to production and they don't know how to have the doors open yet. So, yeah, intern Lucas has to figure that one out. That's great.
Yeah. No, yeah, they yeah, it was pretty crazy. I think like there wasn't that many demo cars because they were still figuring out production and there's a bunch of stuff changing on the car. I don't want to go into too much detail because I can't remember what the NDA was like, but it was a crazy time for sure.
That
And
that was the first Tesla that I rode in, like back.
nice.
I don't even remember what year it was, but yeah. So like, I'm glad that I got to experience some of your work firsthand. That's awesome. I didn't even
Yeah,
know.
you probably did. Yeah. And then yeah, for the construction equipment, that was pretty cool. Got to I was like the fourth or fifth person at a company called Built Robotics, and there's like a huge labor shortage in construction. So basically, they were focused on automating very simple and repetitive tasks for construction. So when I got there, the first kind of vehicle that we had that the team had already built up was this. It's called a Bobcat or like a skid steer. So it's a smaller machine with the 2 treads, and you can get all the attachments on the front. And then like my second or third week there, it's like, oh yeah, we want to get into bulldozing. So like, can we actually do this? So went to basically one day, like a 60,000-pound bulldozer showed up at the office. It's like, all right, you have like 2 weeks to like figure out, can we like actually like control this thing with the computer? So I basically spent 2 weeks like covered in dirt and mud trying to like take the cab of this thing apart. So there's like, figuring out, okay, like if there's no one in the seat, then the thing doesn't work. So we have to figure out how to control the seat. And like when you like press this joystick forward, like what is the signal that it's sending to the machine to like do that? And then basically I had to like figure out how to trick the machine into like thinking that someone was sitting in the cab and controlling all these joysticks and stuff. So that was pretty cool. I think it took me like 2 weeks or maybe a little less, but basically like I have a video on my phone somewhere where it's like the first like driving by like an Xbox controller. And then from there, it's like building out the hardware suite, figuring out what sensors to use, to like the servers, the like ultra rugged servers, and ended up programming a lot on that. And that was ended up grading like 200 pads for like 200 houses.
Okay,
And
it actually went out and did stuff. That's wild.
yeah. I think when you're working on this thing, it's like you have to be in the field. There's just like crazy stuff that you discover when you're in the field. A lot of like hardware reliability. Those machines are super tough. And so I would actually go out to, I can't remember the city name, but it was like Tracy, California. It's like an hour and a half outside of San Francisco. travel there for the week, basically like working with the guys in construction and like trying to figure out like how do we make this thing, like what is a human thinking when they're like bulldozing, and then like how do we kind of encode that and get the bulldozer to act the way that you want. So there's a lot of like iteration in the field. And yeah, it ended up grading around 200 pads. I think the best day that we had, I think it did like 10 pads. So there were some good days for that machine, but also a lot of like headaches and debugging shit that wasn't very fun.
Well, I mean, I think the Celestia guy, he's well known for hacking the CIA when he was a teen. But we've got Lucas over here hacking into a bulldozer, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have quite the clout for CIA hacking.
Not quite there. Yeah, I think that's like character stuff. That starts to put you, gets you in trouble. We need to keep you lower key than that, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. So aside from, I mean, it seems like you're pretty passionate about this kind of stuff. So aside from crypto, like if you weren't doing crypto right now, what do you think you would be doing? What would you be working on?
That's a good question. I think right now is like a cool time to be in hardware and robotics. I think the AI space is changing so fast, and like, I guess I don't think I have the skill set for AI. I think the other part is the other hot field right now is robotics. Robotics is super hard. There's a lot of hardware involved, a lot of algorithms. It's kind of like the mishmash between computing and like being in the physical world. So I think probably be in robotics. I think we're probably not self-driving cars. I think those are too far away. I really like the approach that Built is taking, where it's like, you can do super repetitive things that, humans, if you can like reallocate humans doing super repetitive things to more high value tasks, or like managing fleets of robots that are doing simple things, the operating domain is very restricted. You're like in the middle of cornfields. There's like no one around. So like, you don't need to have the same level of like algorithms for like a 10,000 pound car going 60 or 70 down the highway. It's like a very heavy, very, very heavy machine moving very, very slowly with no one around it. So you get to focus on shipping a lot more versus like designing these like crazy algorithms.
I mean, you obviously are in crypto. You're a founder and you're the CEO of this company, Jito. And like I founded small companies before, and I've run some companies, and I find that very hard and time consuming. I'm just like managing people, and it's like, I mean, it's like it consumes your entire life, right? So something I wanted to ask you about was like, how do you find a balance in like what you're doing between your passions, like family life, and like trying to build this startup into, something massive?
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. It sounds like cheesy, and I'll probably get made fun of for saying that, or it's like, being a founder is like a lifestyle, but it's like it's like your baby. And like, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. It's like all I think about. It's like all I do during the day. Don't really do much else. And yeah, I guess like, I think there's definitely waves, in like late, I guess basically from like October to December, it's like super crazy. Obviously it's pretty crazy now in different ways. In like, it's got waves, it goes up and down. I think the most important thing that I found towards the beginning to middle of last year is like working out. So obviously I used to swim. I took a long break of like not doing anything. I've gone through like phases of like doing the Peloton stuff. I think you can see it back there. But like doing like Peloton, running, been trying to run a lot, just get out of the house. That's been like super important. You can tell when you don't do that and you start to get like kind of antsy, or like stressed. So
I love that Justin was like, so how do you balance things? How do you make sure you take it?
I don't.
Like you fucking don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially if you've never worked at a startup. It sounds like you guys have, so you kind of get it. But you know, a lot of these companies, it's like, oh, like a 9 to 5, and you have your hour lunch break, and you have like ping pong tables and all the other memes of like Silicon Valley, and then you have all these systems built for you, like all these crazy software systems and frameworks, and it's like when you're starting startup, it's like 0 to 1. Like you have to invent everything, and you don't want to like skip ahead. It's like, oh, I worked at Google, like we're gonna do it the way that they did. It's like that's like setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, it's not you have to make sacrifices for sure.
Yeah. I think so here's kind of a tough question, but it just came to me. I heard the founder of NVIDIA talk about startups a while back in an interview, and he said if he was going to do it over again, he wouldn't. And he would and he wouldn't recommend people to like start startups. And there's like more context to that. But I'm going to turn that question to you. If you knew what you know now, would you do this all over again?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think maybe like 5 years from now, it might be a different answer.
Mm.
I think that the team is like small enough now to where, and we're still moving at a super fast pace. Maybe that will, hopefully we can keep that for a while and like keep like the guys at Jito Labs like going fast and getting a lot done. But it definitely like starts to take a toll on you at some point. I'm sure it's I mean, I don't know how long NVIDIA's been around, maybe like 20 years or something, but I'm sure after that point it's like, was this like really worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have one more question before we get into the more Joe stuff about liquid staking and whatnot. But I heard, and I mentioned this in the intro, that you have a 40 resting heart rate or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that true? How
Yeah.
are you alive?
It might be a little higher now because I'm drinking. I've already had 1 yerba mate. I'm on my second.
Yeah.
It's at like 50 right now.
Wow.
I think I just have like, it just runs in my family. My dad has the same thing. His is even lower. It was like when he would sleep, it's like 30 or something.
Yeah.
But he's pretty fit as well. He's in construction, so he's like on his hands and knees and carrying stuff all day. So yeah.
So I thought mine was low. I sit around 55. But is your VO2 max, and this is getting into like nerdy workout stuff, but is your VO2 max pretty high then?
I actually haven't measured that.
Okay.
I want to.
Okay. We can go to one of my old classrooms. They have a lab if you ever come to Portland, and we can measure it.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Do a podcast at the lab.
Yeah. Just
the psychometrics and the physical measurements. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have to like hook you up to a tube, get you on this treadmill, and then you just like sprint, and then for as long as you can, and then you have to do it a few times. But anyway, okay. So let's move on to something a little more interesting. I'll turn it over to Andrew. Andrew, if you want to chat up Lucas about liquid staking, why that's important.
Yeah, man. I think you're probably one of the world's foremost authorities on this, and so it's an easy one to toss it up to you. But just would love to hear you talk a little bit about the concept of liquid staking tokens in general, how that differs from direct staking, particularly on Solana, and what that means you can do playing around the DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah. Before I dive into this, I think a lot of some of this applies to every network. Like obviously Ethereum had liquid staking very early on. And staking on Solana works a little differently from like an implementation standpoint, but a lot of the ideas are the same. So basically, Solana is a proof of stake network. Basically it's like an anti-Sybil mechanism, and it gives you authority in the network to produce blocks and basically make consensus. So when you're making blocks, you're taking all these users' transactions, putting them into basically blocks, sending them out to the rest of the network. All these other validators that have stake of their own are like replaying those blocks and coming to consensus on it, saying, okay, this block was valid or not valid, or this is kind of the ordering of blocks. it's a blockchain, so there's a bunch of blocks chained together. And those validators get their stake weight by you staking the asset to it. So in Solana's case, you're staking Solana. And when you are staking Solana, you're basically giving this validator power to do these activities. And traditionally, when you're staking, you are basically, you're like, okay, I want to stake to a validator. Here's Jito 1. I will deposit my SOL into a stake account, gets put on this validator or delegated to this validator. And when you're staking, you're earning the inflation from the network. Basically, it's like, hey, thanks for staking. Here's some rewards. So yeah, you're basically like helping secure the network by delegating it to this validator. Now, it's not doing that is not very capital efficient. You're basically, when you're staking, you don't have access to that SOL that you put on there. So if I have like $1,000 of Solana, it's kind of like I either stake it or I can just hold it or I can use it in DeFi. There's not really, you can't really do both without liquid staking. This is where liquid staking comes in. So basically with liquid staking, you can kind of, you can stake your Solana and you get a liquid form of it in a liquid staking token. Some people call it a receipt token. And basically what's going on behind the scenes is you are interacting with a stake pool in this like protocol. Let's just say like Jito Sol. There's a bunch of other liquid staking tokens on Solana, BSOL, MSOL, and all the other ones that are popping up recently. And so what's going on is you put your SOL into the stake pool. It basically mints you a receipt token or liquid staking token based on the ratio that you put in. So you basically given the SOL to this protocol, gives you a liquid staking token. That protocol will then stake it to a validator in the validator set. Every stake pool is a different validator set. Basically, which validator do you choose from, and which validator do you delegate SOL to? And that SOL is staked. You have your receipt token. So now you're earning staking yield, and you're also staking to a validator, helping to secure the network. And we're seeing like middle of last year to now, there's been a huge acceleration in Solana DeFi. So you can, there's a tons of things that you can do with liquid staking tokens to kind of play around with DeFi, potentially earn more yield. Not financial advice for sure, but you can provide liquidity. So liquidity is super important for liquid staking tokens. Basically, getting in and out of liquid staking tokens, converting them from Jito Sol to Sol. And so one way that you can participate in this is basically go to any AMM on Solana, can deposit a 50-50 ratio of Jito Sol and Sol. And that's kind of a pool that people can swap in and out of to get in and out of Jito Sol. You can do borrow lending, you can do leverage. It's kind of like the world's yours. But basically, you're staking SOL, you have a liquid staking token, you can go use it in DeFi. The liquid staking token is accruing value based on the SOL that you put in originally. So you're earning, anywhere from 6 to 8% APY. And if you want to get out of liquid staking, you can basically sell it on one of the pools that I was describing, or you can go back to the contract and say, hey, I want to get my SOL back. Here's the receipt token or the liquid staking token. I want my SOL back, and it will give it back to you, the original amount you put in plus the accrued rewards.
That was actually a pretty Midcurve explanation of that. Entirely digest. Thanks.
Getting better at that.
Yeah. As more people like us come into Solana, I think for a period it was just all the builders and the crunchy people. That's going to be a more important skill. But you broke down pretty well why liquid staking tokens are useful for the user, right? You can zap them around DeFi, you can earn a ton of yield, very capital efficient, depending on some of the products you can build. But can you talk a little bit more about why staking is important for the network and what it means you're actually doing when you're using an LST to help secure the network?
Yeah, staking is super important for the network. It helps secure the network. And um, let me think of like an example here. Um, so yeah, I guess like with the popping up of like restaking and eigenlayer, there's a lot of talks about using Ethereum security and using staked ether in the form of actually the staked ETH or liquid staking tokens to secure networks. And it's like, okay, what does that security mean? So I guess you can imagine there's a network that has it doesn't have that much security. So let's say like there's like $1 million of assets secured to that network. Um, that basically means that like you can potentially the cost to attack that network is not very high. And when I mean attack, it could mean like some malicious party or some malicious government can basically buy up a bunch of the token, stake it. Now they have a lot of power on that network to perform whatever activities they want. And so that's, the more assets that are staked, the better, the higher the security for the network. The cool thing about liquid staking tokens is, at least on Solana, you can, most liquid staking protocols in Solana are delegating SOL to many validators. The validator sets are big. I think Jito SOL is like around 100 to 200 validators. Others are more. There are some LSTs that are smaller. They don't cater to the decentralization piece as much as like a Jito SOL or MSOL or any of the other liquid staking tokens. And so you get to basically spread your stake across all those validators in the validator set according to like whatever the delegation criteria is for that validator set.
Love that. That makes a ton of sense. It kind of segues into, something I'm curious to pick your brain about. I think it's really unusual for a project to be as deeply integrated with its base layer across all these different sectors and segments as Jito is with Solana. In addition to this LST we just talked about a lot, there's the Jito Solana validator client, which is up to something like 60% of network stake weight right now, billions and billions of dollars running that thing. And StakeNet's coming out pretty soon, which could potentially act as a generalizable protocol where you can do things like restaking on Solana as well. So as the head of a project that's putting out all of these products that are doing really interesting things on Solana, I'm curious, what's your sort of ethos in approaching all that? How do you conceive of how Jito fits in with Solana, and what kind of impact do you aim to have within the overall ecosystem?
And
Yeah.
on top of that, can we also add in like, what is your opinion on restaking?
Oh gosh, I'll save that one towards the end.
Okay.
Remind me if I don't get to it, because those are all very juicy questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think like MEV for me, I think it's super interesting from like a economic and technical standpoint. The amount of engineering work that's gone into the like Jito Labs block engine, and then also the Jito Solana client, and even just the network as a whole is like super interesting for an engineer. I think that there's a lot of things that Jito's involved with on Solana, and I hope that like governance of the Jito protocol will really take that into account when making decisions. I think StakeNet will be a very important piece for kind of codifying that in how it treats these different aspects from like decentralization to performance. For Jito Sol to be successful in like basically Solana as a whole, I think DeFi needs to be super efficient on Solana. That's why co-founder and I started Jito in the first place, to basically try to make DeFi more efficient on Solana. There's a lot of spam and wasted block space on Solana. The idea is to basically make it as efficient as possible so that DeFi can succeed. And from there, a lot of the other protocols and liquid staking tokens, Jito Sol included, can benefit from that. It's definitely, it's definitely like a lot of weight on the protocol itself, but also Jito Labs. And it's like not something that we take lightly. I think we all want to see Solana succeed. And if it's not successful, then we're all like kind of wasted some time here.
Okay, so you kind of already described this. So core mission, can you give me like the elevator pitch of the core mission of Jito Labs?
Yeah, Jito Labs builds high performance MEV infrastructure to help Solana scale.
Okay.
And high performance MEV infrastructure, that should be a given. Like Solana's a very high performance chain, and MEVs playing an increasingly important role in Solana and also other networks like Ethereum and Polygon, BSC, all the other networks. And the scale part's important too, because we're seeing there's a lot of activity on Solana. There's a ton of arbitrage and traders using Solana. The block space is very cheap. There's a lot of people spamming transactions. Last we checked, it was like over 50% of compute was spent executing failed arbitrages, which is extremely high. I think on Ethereum, it's like pre-flash bots, it was probably decently high. Last time I looked, I think it was like 5-ish% on Ethereum. And it's kind of like the more activity that you see on Solana, the more protocols that pop up. You can think of like every protocol like kind of a hub. It's like a web, basically. So you have all these protocols popping up, and there's inefficiencies that just arise between all these protocols. And there's basically arbitragers and traders trying to like navigating through this web, doing trades and whatnot to try to like equalize these prices or, make money basically. And as we see more protocols and more tokens and more activity on Solana, the amount of webs and the path between all of them are going to continue to grow. And that's just going to bring more traders and potentially more spam. So basically we're trying to build the most efficient blocks that we can on Solana.
Cool. Okay, that was a great explanation of Jito. Very understandable for the midcurves, the middies, like myself, which I appreciate very much. But let's get into some meat here. We had, and Andrew, I'm gonna turn this over to you because
it was a pleasant experience for me to the extent that usually when I wake up and my net worth has declined precipitously, it's my fault. It's something that I did. And on Wednesday instead, I guess you could blame the network. But talk to me about,
I have to say, like, I think that I might be dead inside now because I've been here from the start. So I've experienced a few of these moments now in the past couple of years. And when I woke up, yesterday morning, whatever it was, I felt nothing. I was just like,
It's Bryson.
It's Bryson.
That's right.
It's Bryson. So sorry to cut you off, Andrew. Go ahead.
No, that's great. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, what's it like being you in that situation? Like one of the guys who gets the call on pager duty, who, plays a pretty big role in helping like a $54 billion network, a billion with a B. Like, restart. That's it's good that you have that resting heart rate of 40. Because
yeah, I guess I kind of play by play in my day. I was on call this week. We do rotating on call at Jito Labs. So basically, we have pager duty if there's like downtime in any of the systems. We also have network monitoring. So if the network goes down, we get alerted, and pager duty will just blow up your phone with like text and calls and voicemails and whatnot. So yeah, I woke up at like 3:30. My phone was ringing. I was like, what the heck? Looked at Slack. It was like, oh, like network TPS is low. And then I was like, okay, that's like weird. I haven't seen that one in like, I guess like 11 months and however many days. Mert probably knows. And So then I pull up the I'm like laying in bed. I pull up the explorer.solana.com. I see like all the ping. There's like that ping chart. It's like all red. So I'm like, oh fuck, this is not good. So I go to my computer, open up Discord. People are like, oh, like the network hasn't made a block in like 10 minutes or something. So I'm like, oh shit, this is not good. And then yeah, basically got yeah, there's a kind of a ton of like things going on at that time. Some people are trying to figure out what was going on. So you have like some of the core engineers and other people trying to debug like what was the last slot that was, or what was the last block that was produced? What's going on? Let's look at metrics. You have another group of people that like some validator operators, like Lane stepped up big on this one, started to kind of put together restart instructions just in case the network couldn't come back online. And yeah, so basically it's kind of like there was like that going on. There was people at Anza that were like, okay, we need to like figure out what the root cause was. How do we get this thing restarted? And yeah, that kind of went on for a few hours. Someone made the call, or I guess people collectively made the call to, it's like, okay, this thing's not going to get restarted automatically. We need to like actually shut everything down, get a new patch and everything. So Anza pushed a patch to the Solana Labs client, and then we basically, I looked at the commit that fixed it, gave the okay, cut a Jito Solana release, got everyone restarted, and like people created snapshots based on the last optimistically confirmed slot, and basically yeah, that is kind of just a waiting game. Obviously not super ideal. I think this is one of the more organized restarts. Unfortunately, Solana has gotten pretty good at that. Like if
Hey,
I think if that happened,
you can't kill that which can be restarted. Okay, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think if other networks ran in, it sucks it happens. Like it's not really excusable. But I do think Solana's gotten pretty good at that. And like this is probably one of the faster restarts and more organized. There's been some more tooling that's built around it. And my like tinfoil hat is that someone saw what the bug was, and because I think this is the same bug that happened on DevNet almost a week ago at this point. Someone saw that bug and started looking into it and realized that mainnet had the same bug and tripped it. That's kind of my tinfoil hat. I don't know if we'll ever get hopefully we'll get some conclusion to why it happened.
That would mean Solana has its own, what is it, DevOps 99? But yeah, the guy who bricked Ethereum. But yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. I'm curious, like you've probably been through a lot of these at this point. You're talking about this was one of the more organized and quicker to resolve. Do you have one that's seared into your memory, like a sort of a memory from the trenches?
Yeah, I guess real quick on commenting on like why I think it was so fast. I think people have done it before, but I think also people knew, I think like less than like 24 hours before this happened, they had root caused what happened to DevNet. And so it was like I think it's pretty obvious like what happened when the network paused. And so they knew like what changes had to be made. And so I think that's like partially the reason why on previous ones, it's like, okay, the network stopped producing blocks, or there's a ton of forking, or like whatever it is. And from there, it's like, okay, like like how do we know if we restart the network that it's going to be okay? Like, what is the issue? I think the one before this was pretty rough, just because I think people didn't really know like what happened. It came out after the fact, but it basically was like a DOS that the network like wasn't encoded to handle. and that one was like pretty tricky to figure out at that time. I think it was on a Friday night too. Um,
That's a point that I saw, if you had to scroll a lot because all of Solana was getting memed on so hard. It was difficult to
yeah,
find like useful information. But one thing that a couple people pointed out on Twitter was that this is a different sort of halt than what we've seen in the past, to the extent that, it's not related to the chain not being able to handle high volume, like trying to, this was a particular bug that got taken out. And like,
yeah,
Bitcoin has had bugs, right? There was the infinite inflation bug at one point. Like,
Mhm.
that's it. It feels different. I'm trying to find like a silver lining here.
yeah. No, I think um, there's been a lot of like DOS related like bugs or like shutdowns in the past. Um, I mean, hopefully most of them are like figured out at this point. I'm sure there's like a few more. Hopefully they don't knock down the entire network. But I mean, like I think when the first one I was a part of was like 2021, late 2021. There was like some forwarder bug where the network got overwhelmed with transactions, and uh, if the current leader can't process all the transactions, it will forward it to the next leader so that it can try to take a stab at it. But there wasn't like a break in that chain. So like leaders are just keep forwarding and forwarding and forwarding. And that was kind of like a DOS related thing that had never come up. I think it might have been during an IDO or like an NFT mint. So obviously like knock on wood, that one won't happen again. I think the halt before this was related. This was more of like it wasn't even like a consensus bug. I think it might have been like, actually, I don't want to speculate. I'll just wait to see what the root cause is.
Yeah.
I think I know what it was, but yeah, I think the DOS ones are less likely. I think the tricky ones are just like bugs like this one and the any like potential consensus bugs. But that's kind of where like the other clients like FireDancer and SIG come in.
I was gonna ask, does FireDancer fix this?
Um, I think it on a long enough time horizon, yes. I think it's going to be rocky at first because I mean it depends on what stakers do. Ultimately, it's up to stakers and like validator operators to decide what version of client they want to run. And uh, I think on a long enough time horizon, FireDancer will certainly help make the network more resilient. But in the short term, it will probably be pretty rocky in that, like, if you have 60% of the network running one client, 40% running the other, then like in like the 40% one goes down, then the network kind of stops finalizing. And so, at that point, you kind of need to figure out which client's right. And, that will be a question to hopefully people are thinking about now, but that will be a question like, I guess people are going to assume that Solana Labs is correct, but eventually that will just move to like, hopefully there's a consensus spec, and that is like something being worked on.
Okay, I wanna shift gears a little bit here, and talk about the future of Solana and Jito in general. So I guess my question is, what's next for Jito Labs? Like, what are you excited for? What are some upcoming projects?
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead and just opine on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the past few quarters, it's been a lot of stability. So, like, I was looking at PagerDuty like a month ago, and the amount of like alerts that we've gotten from our system going down have massively decreased. So, making the block engine more resilient has been a huge thing. Now, basically, since like the beginning of December, there's been a ton of volume on Solana. There's a ton of like traders that are starting to leverage the system. As the amount of stake grows and the amount of volume on Solana happens, there's just more arbitrageurs, more MEV searchers.
Yeah.
So right now we're getting
Sorry to interrupt, but like Edgar had that incredible tweet a couple weeks
yeah,
when he first launched this data dashboard we have on MEV on Solana. It was embarrassing because it rounded down to 0, and now it's
yeah,
thousands of SOL every week.
Yeah.
It's like the growth in activity just really can't be overstated. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, now like the system's getting like 800 bundles every second, and there's like hundreds to like thousands of searchers sending bundles, and like we're trying to simulate everything to figure out what can make it, what's going to pay the most and what doesn't, and like trying to do that when you're getting hundreds to thousands of bundles a second is super hard. And so there's a lot of stuff that co-founder's been working on to make the simulator better, faster, more accurate. I'm pretty excited about more like bundle related metrics, like, you know, what are the bundles touching, what bundles are touching like the like Orca AMM or CLMM, who are the signers, just like very, very detailed stats on bundles would be pretty cool. And then, yeah, I guess just like continuing to, another thing that we're starting to think about is like, what does the next stage of MEV look like on Solana? I think current systems like proven out that, you know, it works pretty well. There's definitely room for improvement, and thinking about how do we improve it. I think there's a lot of learnings to make from our current system. Also systems on other networks like Fastlane, Flashbots, and PBS. There's some like pros and cons to all those. And so like trying to really zoom out and think about what's the direction that like MEV should go in on Solana.
I guess along that vein, like what is the direction Solana needs to head? Like where do you see the Solana ecosystem evolving, and what do you see as like Jito's role in that ecosystem?
Cell phones.
Yeah.
Cell phones.
Yeah, cell phones.
Can we get into the Vision Pro somehow?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, they need like some wallet in there or something. Yeah, no, what direction should Solana head in? I think continuing to focus on reliability of the network, more testing and all that stuff, just to keep like the network performing well. I think you know, ignoring the outage, I think there's been the pace of development is somewhat slowing down. You know, I think there's more of a focus on testing. I think also with like Firedancer coming online, hopefully in the next like year or two, they've kind of had to slow down because if they don't stop adding new features, then Firedancer is like always trying to catch up. So there's a certain point where it's like that's to slow down. So I think like continue to make the network reliable, faster. There's a lot of stuff going on with fee markets that I'm excited about. Basically, like I think block space is like massively underpriced right now. And if you agree with that or not, I think everyone can agree that's inaccurately priced. So like whether it's better scheduler, better priority fee mechanisms, potentially dynamic base fees, a lot of these topics are super interesting. I think continuing to push the performance of the network, make algorithms more efficient, things that don't really require like core network changes, but are more implementation details. Like how is this thing like sort packets, and like how's this thing like if it's getting too many packets, how does it decide to like drop them? Like just like really nitty gritty stuff like that. And then I think another big thing is getting more people to build on Solana, more tooling around that, and like making it the best place to build. I think it might have been someone from the Alliance team. It's like when you want to build on Ethereum, there's like, I think there's not that many like projects that are actually building on the L1 because it's kind of getting expensive. If you want actual users, you have to go to L2s. So it's like, which L2 do I go to? Like Arbitrum, Optimism, Base. There's like so many decisions to make. With Solana, it's just Solana. Just like, it's pretty easy. It's all a single state machine. So I think getting more people to build on that would be great.
Well,
so if you could
go on, Joseph. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, you're talking about like Solana being the best place to build. If you were to give like 3 succinct reasons why someone should just come and build on Solana, what would those be?
Yeah. I I think there's a lot of really good applications that are built that you can compose with, and you kind of get the network effects. If you build good apps, you can kind of get the network effect of those other users. Where like, if you're building on Optimism or like some L2, you need to attract the users from other L2s because they need to get funds on there. And there's, the workflow for that. Hopefully it's improving, but it's not there yet. And so you basically get you can get the network effect of other apps. People have funds on the chain already. I think compute's there's essentially abundant compute, and it's very cheap. And storage it's not abundant, but it gets the job done. And so you don't really need to worry about things like gas golfing. Hopefully people do start to do that soon. I'm not saying, write an efficient code, but I'm saying like you don't have to worry about optimizing every single operation that happens on Solana. And yeah, I think you're basically like, I think the Solana network the performance of it is advancing faster than other networks. Like if you look at the compute required from 116 to 117, even going back to like 113, it's getting way more efficient, which means that more efficient the algorithms get, the faster network will run.
Okay. Andrew, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to joke that when, Solana starts changing its fee markets, we're definitely not having him on for that. I still don't understand EIP 1559. Like that stuff, it's inscrutable.
Yeah.
Like the level of complexity on that is insane.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you, if we want people to build on Solana, and people actually start building on Solana, what advice would you give them? You as a founder, you founded this company, Jito. Now it's been, pretty successful. You've kind of been through the ringer. What advice would you give people who want to come build on Solana, build a company here?
Yeah. I mean, good idea, good execution. Those are like easier said than done. I think stay focused. That's just like standard like entrepreneur advice. Like you don't want to get spread too thin and have your, be shipping like 10 things at once with a super small team. So stay focused, find your niche. And I think from like an engineering standpoint, shipping MVPs as fast as possible, getting feedback, getting into that fast iteration loop. From an engineering standpoint, Anchor is a good place to start out. So like Solana program test is a great to use for testing your programs. This is kind of getting into maybe the right curve stuff a little more, but like we've wasted a lot of time with like TypeScript and Anchor testing and stuff like that. And Solana program test, super nice, very fast. I think also like there's a lot of people are like, oh, we don't need to copy stuff from Ethereum. I think that's certainly true. I think every chain needs like some base primitives like LSTs, borrow-lend, stuff like that. But really think about what are actually the things that are only possible in Solana. I think if there's like these base primitives, like very small variations of base primitives that are only popping up on Solana, then it's going to be much harder than like a breakout app, like Friend Tech, for instance, like on Base and the activity that brought. Something like that. Something that can leverage the cheap compute and the high throughput and creating really good applications with that, I think is going to be key.
Cool. Okay, I understood like maybe 75% of that, so I feel I'm very proud of myself right now. We're running out of time, so final thoughts or takeaways. I have a young kid. Are they going to be able to use Solana in the future? Are we going to be okay? What are your thoughts?
For sure. Yeah,
Right.
I think they'll be able to use it. I think there's a lot of networks popping up that I think won't necessarily be here. I think Solana has attracted a culture that I don't think it's, I hate, I'll probably get shit for this, but like it's not as cultured as Ethereum. It's just newer. It hasn't been around as long, but I think there's nothing else that comes in between Ethereum and Solana. I think great builders, really engineering focused chain compared to kind of this like more philosophical, like research focused. Hopefully, I can go more research focused, but I think it will be around.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.